All right, so welcome everyone to yet another awesome community event. Today's session is about, today's session is about setting goals for outcome-oriented product teams with our awesome host, Hope Gurion. And before we start, I'd like to give some intro about myself and product people. So I'm Mashal. I have 3+ years of product management and business analysis experience. And I've worked on many different projects from B2B to B2C, including Lebocine, Utopia, Luminary, Alaska Commercial. And I'm based in Pakistan, been working in product people for quite some months now, and I'm loving it. Why I'm loving it, that I'm going to tell you right away. So at Product People, we help companies discover and deliver great products faster. We do that in 2 ways. We manage all the unglamorous work of product managers on an interim basis, which takes usually three months to 1 year or more, depending on the contract and the work. Also, we have a community of 17,000 people, actually even more now, and we create events and share knowledge generously with the community. So thank you everyone for being a part of this amazing community, because it's you who make this community awesome. So if you or any one of you is in need of our services, please remember we are always happy to help. Furthermore, together with you, we conduct these weekly meetings or community events. And today, like always, we have a guest who will talk us about an exciting topic from product management world. And the discussion will be followed by a Q&A session and a friendly networking event in the comments, to which you are all dearly invited. With that being said, I will do an ice-breaking session, which is basically 2 questions for all of you. You can answer those questions in the chat, or you can use the Zoom pop-up, which will appear shortly. The first question is, the goal I worked on most recently was, you can tell what goal you worked on, and the output you've delivered, the outcome of that goal, or whether that goal was related to your professional and development goals, basically. The second question is, the way we set goals most recently was, so you have a few options. You can go with any of the options you seem appropriate. You can see the poll on your Zoom, and you can answer the questions in any of the chats on any of the platforms you're live on right now. Okay. So let's give everyone a few minutes to choose an answer. We'll share the answers, and then Hope will begin the presentation.
While people are answering the poll, I thought it was funny because I actually didn't know there were glamorous parts of product management work. I thought the whole thing was unglamorous. So,
Well,
so we should do a poll. What are the most glamorous parts of product management?
All right, so we got some results. So the goal people mostly worked on recently was related to outcome.
Great.
And individual professional development as well, which is cool. Yeah. The answer for the second question is, where we asked, the way we set goals most recently was, some people said we didn't set any goals. Some said that teams set them independently. And some said that leaders assign them to the teams. Well, whereas most of them have said that teams and leaders negotiate to set them, which is what we usually see. All right. With that being said, I will introduce our amazing amazing guest speaker, Hope Gurion, who is who's from Fearless Product. And welcome, Hope. Looking forward to your presentation, and hopefully we'll get some awesome questions for you to answer.
That would be great.
I'll stop sharing.
Excellent. All right, you stop sharing and I will start sharing.
Awesome.
Good to see several of you here for this topic. It actually is surprising to see your poll results because more often than not, and this is where we'll get into it when we get into the Q&A, I don't see very many teams having outcome-oriented goals. And so that's great. It seems like for the people who have goals, they're mostly outcome-oriented, which is exactly where we want to be. But also see the way that those goals were set, there was a lot of variation. For some people, they didn't have any goals. For some people, they were handed goals. But the optimal is that we negotiate them between the team and the leader. So a decent percentage of you are in that place. So that's great. I was trying to figure out what image to start with to introduce this topic today, because there's a lot of goal related conversations going on right now. There's these types of goals with World Cup going on, and with it being the end of the year and people doing their strategic planning for next year, there's this type of goal setting going on. So hopefully you're here. It'd be more fun to talk about the World Cup goals, but we're going to talk about the unglamorous work of goal setting for outcome-oriented product teams today. Because so many people I know are in the process of reflecting on the goals that they set in 2022 and setting up goals to help them be successful in 2023. My name is Hope Gurion. I'm going to cover the following topics today in this chat. And again, want to leave a lot of time for Q&A. So I'm going to go through this pretty quickly, and we can dive into whatever interests you most as we go through this. So I'll tell you a little bit about who I am and my background in this topic, why I think I have a unique perspective to share on it. We're going to talk about why set outcome goals, and we're going to do some checking to see the degree to which your goals are truly outcome goals. We're going to talk about what a product outcome is and why that's critical for product teams to have defined for their work. We're going to talk and show some examples of what goes wrong when teams are setting outcome goals. And then I'm going to show you how to actually improve upon them and show you some good examples for outcome-oriented goals. Okay. I have worked with hundreds of product people over the years. I worked with tons of product leaders over the years, especially in that phase where people and teams and companies are moving from output-oriented styles of product management to outcome-oriented styles of product management. And for a lot of teams and leaders, they are dissatisfied with the results. And a lot of that has to do with the actual words they put in their outcome goals. And so that's what I want to get to today, is how to make those effective. As I mentioned, my name is Hope Gurion. I have been a product leader for most of my career, worked in product management at a variety of tech companies, B2B, B2C, at media companies as well. Most recently, I worked as a chief product officer and SVP of product. Over the last 6 years, I've shifted to having my own business where I have a wonderful partnership with Teresa Torres of Product Talk. For those of you familiar with continuous discovery habits and the opportunity solution tree, she and I've worked together for about 8 years. In fact, I was one of her first clients when she was beginning coaching. So we have a very good relationship and have worked with a lot of product leaders and teams. I do that under my own company, Fearless Product. I also moderate the Product Leader Council for a company called Collaborative Gain. And I have a podcast, although I've been a little lax on creating episodes lately. But if you're interested in hearing how some really fantastic product leaders tackle the toughest, least glamorous aspects of the product leadership role, you can check out that podcast. I've been working with leaders and teams all over the world in startups, large enterprises, regulated industries, healthcare, banking, in B2B, in B2C, internal facing products, mature products, emerging products, 0 to 1 products. Like, I have worked with a lot of different companies in different contexts all around the world. And I have seen this pattern of difficulties in setting effective outcome goals happen again and again. In fact, I saw it so often that a couple of years ago in the pandemic, I used that downtime to create a course called Defining Outcomes. And it sells out every time we offer it, because this is such a pervasive challenge for product leaders and teams. We've had hundreds of people take the course. We have new classes coming up in the new year, if this is something that you want to learn more about. But I want to get into the first topic, which is why companies move to outcome-oriented goals versus other types of goals, and why that's impactful. A lot of companies, product teams, leaders are moving away from output-oriented goals, and output being go build this feature or go solve this problem or deliver this thing by this date, is because we want to have clarity about how we are measuring success. How will we know that we have succeeded? And measure is a key word here. This is why I think a lot of companies are drawn to OKRs as a goal setting framework. But you can misuse OKRs. Like, just because it's called OKRs doesn't necessarily mean that it will instantly be effective, right? The words that we use when we set those goals matter, okay? A lot of companies will use OKRs and then they still have output-oriented goals, and it's binary. We delivered the thing or we didn't. We hit the date or we didn't. And so we need to have much more effective ways of measuring success, and outcomes help us measure success. The second reason we define outcome goals is not just to measure whether or not we hit the goal, but to assess the degree to which we were successful. Why do we believe that if we, the product team, deliver on this measure of success, it will create value for our company, right? Companies exist to create value for stakeholders, for shareholders. We want to make sure that we can, in fact, create value for the company. The third reason is we want to verify that the goal, that measure of success, is within our team's scope, within our team's realm of influence. A lot of companies set functionally oriented goals, like department level goals, the marketing team's goals, the sales team's goal, the support team's goal, or individual level goals, which that came across in the poll as well. There's nothing wrong with having an individual professional development goal. But when we're working on a product team, we're working on a cross-functional team. So we cannot have functionally aligned goals. So when we have an outcome goal, it sets the scope for our team's discovery and for all of the decisions that we're making related to the product that we're working on. If we set a goal that is beyond our team's realm of influence, the team will be demotivated and they will be slow to make progress, especially when we're dependent on other teams who are working towards completely different measures of success. So when we define an outcome goal for a product team, we also want to have clarity about whose behavior we aim to change, right? When we're creating products, they're intended to be used by somebody. And if they use those products, they get value from those products, we'll see a behavior change. And we're going to get into more of that today. So a lot of leaders and teams, when they're first defining outcome goals, want to check that task off their to-do list as soon as possible, okay? But a lot of teams, when they're moving from output to outcome-oriented goals, are doing this for the very first time, which means that they are going to have overconfidence bias. And they frequently underestimate the importance and difficulty of defining a good outcome for their product teams. They have this urgency to achieve business results. That's what their leaders are talking to them about, right? We want to move this revenue metric, or we want to move this cost avoidance or cost savings metric. But as they quickly rush to check that task off their to-do list, they often find that their lack of experience defining good outcome goals, or even understanding what makes for an effective outcome goal, ends up having dire consequences for their product teams because it impacts their team's ability to make decisions. Okay. Now, if you are familiar with Teresa Torres and continuous discovery habits, you probably have some familiarity with the opportunity solution tree. Okay. And many of the times that product teams are having conversations with each other or with their leaders, it's about this level. What opportunity are we solving? What problems have we discovered about our customers? Or which problems should we solve next? Or how are we doing on progressing on the solutions, right? Should we do this solution or this solution? Right? How might we solve these customer problems or opportunities? But what we don't spend enough time on is this outcome that sits at the top of the tree. And this is a problem because the only way a product team is going to make good decisions is if they have the means to quickly get feedback and learn whether or not their decisions are in fact good. And this is why the outcome sits at the top of the opportunity solution tree. And in fact, we recommend product teams have product outcomes. So what is a product outcome? If we were to zoom in on that outcome at the top of the tree, we would actually see this distinction between a business outcome and a product outcome. And we strongly recommend that an empowered product team is working towards a goal, is accountable to a product outcome. So if you're moving from output to outcome-oriented styles of product management in your organization, you may find your leaders are rushing to check that to-do list item off, right? Set goals for the teams, and they will set business outcomes for the teams. But that is not going to help the teams learn quickly, because if we have business outcomes set for the teams, those are typically lagging financial indicators that are typically involve more than just the product team, right? Factors that are beyond the team's realm of influence. Could be the sales team, could be the support team, could be the marketing team. So instead, when we define a product outcome, we have some definitions. So here's how a product outcome is defined. We want our product outcome to be a definition defined as a change in human behavior. Which humans? The humans that we expect to be using our product, that we can measure or observe. When we're first setting outcome goals, we may not have a way to measure it in product analytics. We may have to start with customer observations, qualitative observations that help us see if we're on the right track, if we're creating that behavior change. And we believe if that human behavior occurs, it will lead to our desired business outcome. And we want to make sure that it is within the influence of the product team. So a lot of product teams, when they're moving from output to outcome-oriented environments, they're moving from feature teams or project teams, and they don't actually have an org structure that supports their ability to be clear about which scope of the product is within their team's responsibility. So those are some fundamental things that have to be in place first before we move to outcome-oriented teams. Right? All business is a bet on future human behavior. So if we're not clear what behavior will lead to the business outcome that we seek, it will only be by pure luck that our teams make good decisions. Okay? So as leaders, we need to make sure that our teams have clarity and are aligned on both the desired business outcome and the product outcome that will expedite achieving those desired business results. Right? We need to be clear on who needs to do what behavior, and that behavior change is within our product team's realm of influence, right? If it turns out that the team is not driving that behavior change, they can see where and why they're off track. And as leaders, we can see where and why they're off track. And we can decide, is it because of the decisions the team is making or how they're approaching those decisions? Or is it in fact that we've actually set the wrong goal? And in both cases, we can course correct quickly and avoid wasting a bunch of time working towards the wrong goal or making a bunch of decisions that aren't going to achieve our desired business outcome. So when teams are drafting product outcomes for the first time, I ask them these four questions, okay? And I've seen hundreds of teams drafting outcomes. This is why I think I have a unique perspective on this. You know, if you're working on a product team, you're probably only setting goals a few times a year. If you're a product leader, you're only often setting goals within the teams within your organization. So what you have seen is limited. But I have this fortunate position of being able to see the way teams have set goals, and especially when they're first trying to define outcome goals for hundreds and hundreds of people. So I want you to ask these questions of yourself, because these are the questions I ask teams when they first draft their outcome goals. So the first one is, if this customer behavior occurs, what business outcome would it lead to? And a lot of teams are not clear on that, either because the leadership hasn't provided them that strategic context about what business outcome the company is trying to achieve, or because they don't understand enough about the inputs into their company's business outcomes. So the more that the teams are clear about what business outcomes they're trying to drive, the better they can come up with potential customer behavior changes that will lead to that business outcome. Okay. The second question to ask is, how will we measure or observe that this behavior is occurring, right? We always want to make sure that it's something that we can easily measure or observe. If we want to measure something, but it's difficult for us to measure or observe it, it will not be a good outcome, because then the team is not going to get feedback early and often and be able to course correct if they're making decisions that aren't leading to that business outcome. Right? So we want to make sure it's a measure that we could easily measure or observe. Finally, we want to be clear about whose behavior we want to change. A lot of teams, when they're writing their product outcomes for the first time, simply say users or customers. The more specific we are we talking about your power users? Are we talking about admins? Are we talking about prospective users? Are we talking about light users, occasional users? Who are these people? Are we talking about physicians? Are we talking about accountants who use a competitor's product, right? Whose behavior are we seeking to change? Why will that lead to our desired business outcome, and how will we measure it? And then finally, is this behavior change within our product team's realm of influence? Again, if we're an empowered, outcome-oriented product team, we want to minimize dependencies on other product teams because we want to expedite progress towards our outcome. So these are questions that you can take note of and ask yourself when you're first defining a product outcome. And for those of you who already have outcomes that you're working towards as a team, ask yourself these questions to make sure that you're working or maybe refine your outcome to make it even more effective for your team's decision making. So what goes wrong? I'm going to share the top 5 fails that I see teams making when they're first setting outcome-oriented goals. So you can, and I've anonymized this. We've changed the names to protect the innocent, right? And I know these slides are a little wordy. Unfortunately, as much as I'd love to use pictures, goals are expressed in words. So we're going to have to use words in order for me to give you examples. Okay, these are real draft outcomes taken from product teams and leaders drafting outcomes for their product teams for the very first time. So the first mistake that I see is a sentiment only based goal, right? So here's some examples. Okay. Now, a sentiment only based goal is measurable, right? We could even observe it. But this is the equivalent of make everybody happy. Okay. I want you to instead think of it as, if everybody was sufficiently happy, what behavior would you expect from them? Okay. The second most common mistake I see is solving a predetermined opportunity where either the team has latched on to a specific customer problem to solve, or the leaders or a stakeholder has latched on to a particular problem to solve. Okay, and that does not give the team enough latitude to discover what, in fact, are the most important opportunities to solve and why solving those opportunities would expedite impact on their desired outcomes. Okay, so instead we want to think about, well, if we were to solve that problem, what behavior would we expect to be able to measure or observe? Okay. The next is vague behaviors or vanity metrics, right? These are barely there behaviors. And here's some examples of those, right? Decrease bounce rate, increase monthly active users, increase engagement. Okay, so we decrease bounce rate. That means they stay on the site for 3 seconds or more. That's sufficient, right? So these are ineffective measures of success for product teams. They're not meaningful enough. Okay. The fourth most common mistake I see is they say that they're working towards an outcome, but when you look at the way their outcomes are worded, they're actually outputs, right? Encourage more reporting sharing. That might be a behavior by allowing report customization. That is a solution, right? New scheduled share feature. That is a solution. In this case, they've combined it with 2 lagging business outcomes, okay? And then finally, the 5th most common mistake I see are these lagging business outcomes and often beyond the realm of influence of the product team. So examples of these: triple ad capacity, or attract and retain qualified providers to increase the size of our database so we can fill more orders. Again, lagging outcomes, okay? We recommend 1 product outcome per team per time frame. So I want to make over these examples to show you what good looks like. The first is, so again, instead of having a sentiment only measure of success, pair that with a behavior-based sentiment, okay? So it might be increase the percentage of customers who do X behavior each week while increasing whatever your sentiment metric is, CSAT from X to Y. And again, I'm putting placeholders here because you have to define whose behavior you seek to change and what that desired behavior is. And you want to set an interval of it that, again, helps you calibrate early and often whether or not you're actually driving the behavior change that will lead to your desired business outcome, okay? The second is, instead of predetermining the problem to solve, you ask the question, if that opportunity were solved, what behavior would we expect to measure or observe, and from whom, right? And why does that matter for our business outcome? And then try to rephrase that as that measure of customer behavior that we seek. So again, increase the percentage of customers who do X behavior each, whatever short interval you have, from X to Y%. And you're going to see when we're drafting product outcomes, we want to use this percentage or a ratio. It might be a ratio if we're, again, observing customers for the first time, either when we're in a 0 to 1 product stage, or when we don't have our products instrumented with product analytics or don't have enough customers using our product. But again, we want to do that versus an absolute number because we're trying to have ways that we can easily measure whether or not we're driving the behavior that we seek. And an absolute number is always going to be a lagging outcome, whereas a ratio is something we could measure in shorter intervals. These vague behaviors or vanity metrics, how do we turn these into something more meaningful? So again, we're going to ask ourselves, what is the desired behavior from which customers? So again, instead of, decrease bounce rate or increase people using the product every month, or increase engagement, which isn't defined at all, let's define it. We want to increase the percentage of whoever our target customer is who do whatever behavior each, however often we want to measure it, from X% to Y%, right? If they were using our product, doing this behavior every week, we believe that will drive our business outcome of account growth or new customer acquisition or retention. If you're being prescribed an output or a solution, and again, I would say more often than not, this is not the team saying we want to deliver the solution. More often than not, it's the leaders. This is why it needs to be a two-way negotiation between the leaders and the team. More often, it's somebody else handing a solution to the team. But instead, we can ask, if we had that solution, what behavior would we expect from whom? And why is that going to lead to our desired business outcome? And again, you're going to see this pattern. This is how we want to define this desired product outcome. And with our last example, again, these lagging business outcomes, which again, we had a few problems here, but they were either beyond the realm of influence of the team or they were a lagging indicator. We instead were asked the same question: what behavior from which customers would lead to that desired business outcome? And so I have a few makeovers here. We could increase the percent of, again, I don't know, qualified providers, if that was our target customer. Again, what is a qualified provider? I'd want a definition for what that was. How do we know when somebody is qualified? Who do X behavior? Maybe that's what makes them a qualified provider. Each, again, however often we can measure that. Increase the percentage of prospective providers who activate, if we had a definition for that, within X days of trial from X to Y. Again, either of those might be a way that you could define a product outcome for this one. We could increase the percentage of target customers to do X behavior X times every interval from X to Y. And again, if that's what leads to tripling ad capacity, meaning more visitors of the type that our advertisers value, visiting our site, interacting with our site, doing X behavior, leads to more people being able to view ads or our ability to sell more ads. So these are just some of the examples that I wanted to share, but I really do want to get into your questions. I want to know what you feel challenged by when you're trying to define outcome goals for your team. So I'd love to open it up to Q&A. Masha, if you can help me with that.
Thank you, Hope. This was an amazing presentation, as expected. I'm going to share my screen to open the Q&A slide, and we'll take some questions from our audience. Just give me a second.
No problem.
All righty. So, first of all, thank you all for listening. Please share your questions now with us by sending it on Zoom chat or wherever you're listening us from. While you send your questions, while you write your questions, I will share a bit more about product people and give Hope a breather. Okay, so these are a few use cases where our team is best fit for your company. We help cover the product management positions in some cases, like your product manager is going on a parental leave or leaving your company, and the hiring process would take 2 to 9 months. That's where we come in as interim product managers. We also do product coaching and consultancy, and we can also help you with discovery sessions of your next impactful product you would like to launch. We have done this with many different clients, such as Zalando, Scout24, Freeletics. So if you or any one of you are in need of our services, please remember, we are always happy to help. These are a few of the clients that we have worked with, and you can also check some case studies on our website. Here is just a glimpse of the positive feedback and testimonials we have recently received. And some of our key stats include 71% of client retention, where we had clients renewal. The clients basically renew their initial engagement or expand our services to other business units within the client organization. And we have 40 product leaders and product managers completely in-house to deliver high quality services to our amazing clients. And we have more than 61% of women in our team, with 66% in leadership roles. So this is our team in product people. You see there's a position, an empty place, which means that we are always hiring, looking for some great product related people. And right now we have business development manager position open as well as growth and partnership manager position. So you can apply through the link on the screen, and I think that will be shared in the chat as well. Coming back to our Q&A session, let's see the questions which we have. Okay, first question that we received was from Robert. Robert says that, could you please share the definition of outcome versus output? So maybe just by an example that could help us understand the difference between outcome and output.
No problem. So again, an output is typically a solution. It could be a feature, right? It depends on it. The scope can vary, but it's typically build this thing. Again, could be an entire product experience. It could be a feature by this date is typically how I see outputs defined. Okay, usually date is important. Or it might be build this feature to this scope where there's some PRD, some documentation, something where it's like, this is the output, the solution we want to deliver. An outcome is a measure of customer behavior that would occur that will lead to our desired business outcome. A business outcome is lagging financial indicator of success. The most common ones are grow revenue. But in these days, maybe it's going to be reduce costs or avoid costs, or, you know, scale to more customers without adding costs. So, and again, an outcome is a definition of customer behavior in terms of a product outcome. A business outcome is a lagging financial measure of success. Both are measurable, but one is measuring behavior, that's the product outcome, and the other is measuring the degree to which that change in behavior is led to a financial result for the company. Does that help?
Yeah, I think that should answer the question very clearly. Thank you for the definition, Hope.
No problem.
Following this question, we've got another related question from Marv. Marv is asking if you could just shed some light on lagging outcome, and what is the opposite of lagging outcome with an example.
Yep. So again, I'll use that same example I just provided, right? So lagging outcome, again, typically it's a business outcome. Typically that's a financial measure of success because an outcome is always measurable. So a lagging outcome might be, and a retention to me is like the classic example of a lagging outcome, right? Feels like it's a change in customer behavior. Our customers are not canceling their contracts or not canceling their services or not churning. But typically, unless we have very short customer cycles, right? They only stay customers for a day, a week, a month. They're typically lagging because we don't know if they're going to churn as a customer until that contract ends or that subscription ends, right? Or again, depending on if you're an e-commerce business, how often people are making those transactions. Are they like Amazon? They're shopping with you maybe multiple times a week, or this is something that they purchase, like this is like their retained customer if they come back every 4 months or every year to do a transaction with you. So again, this is where typically that's a lagging indicator. So the opposite is a leading indicator. Again, that's something we can measure in short cycles. That's why these ratios, those percentages, are very helpful when we're defining customer behavior, right? Increase the percentage of visitors who do X, or increase the percent of users who do Y each week. That can make it a leading measure of success. That help?
I think that was a great example. Marv, just let us know if this is clear to you. Otherwise, you can ask your question, rephrasing it as well. Okay, so we've got a lot of questions. Another from Anton, which is again related to the previous questions. I'm just linking the questions which are related to each other. Yep. Anton asks if we can have some examples of change of behavior that we would want to or we should observe.
Yeah. So it'll be helpful if I can use any examples that people have if they're wondering if they have it, because I can give you some examples, but I don't want to. So here, I'll give you an example. If this is an ad, I have to think about the company context, because I think you need to understand, again, the business outcome to define the product outcome. So that one, triple ad capacity, it was a company in the healthcare space. It's an ad supported business. They want to grow their ad revenue. Not surprising, right? That's the way they make money as a business, right? That's their lagging financial outcome. They had an output as their goal, triple ad capacity, right? That's a lagging outcome. So I don't know, in a year from now, we'll know if we tripled ad capacity, right? Like when that, it's not probably a this week goal. So instead, what they did is they redefined it to be, well, who do our advertisers value? That's the people we want visiting our site. Turns out they were more physicians than they were, say, front office workers at a healthcare facility, right? Physicians who are prescribing medication because they get a lot of money from pharmaceutical companies for informative advertising. So what's the behavior that they were seeking? It was increasing the percentage of physicians who visited their site each week, day, month, who did some behaviors. I don't want to get into the specifics, but they were behaviors like checking drug interactions, or, you know what I mean? Like the behaviors that would lead to somebody who was in market potentially valuable to that advertiser. Okay, does that make sense? So again, we're trying to think, and again, every company's revenue model is different. Like if for a subscription business, it might be they get to some point of value or do some behavior with some frequency, and we want to increase the percentage of people who do that behavior each week, each day, each month, because we believe if they're doing that behavior, they're getting value from the product. That means they would never want to live a day of their lives without this product. Make sense?
Yeah. So if I can summarize, it basically means choose an action that the user or the customer can do that is a good proxy to whatever business outcomes, whatever financial lagging metrics you have.
Yes, I think so. Proxy makes me nervous because I want it to lead to, right? So sometimes we don't want it to be so narrow that it's what we call a traction metric. It's use of a specific feature, right? Again, that's usually too narrow for product teams to have enough latitude. So we have to find this sort of Goldilocks sweet spot of what's a way to describe the behavior. And if that behavior occurs, we believe it leads to that business outcome of maybe it's behavior of people in a trial of that product, right? Or maybe it's behavior of a new customer segment that we've not effectively sold to or has used our product in the past, but we believe if they use it similarly to our existing customer segment, that will lead to an ability to expand market share. Again, lagging business outcome. So again, this is where every team has to work to define their product outcome in a way that's meaningful to drive their business outcome. But we want to make sure it includes a measure of customer behavior that will lead to, if that behavior occurs, it leads to that business outcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Makes sense.
Of course.
Thank you. A very interesting question from Ken on LinkedIn. So she says, Hope, from your experience, what percentage of product teams successfully use outcomes to actually drive prioritization?
Oh, well, so this is, let me rephrase the question. For the teams that successfully have a product outcome defined and are working in environments where their leadership understands the value of being outcome driven as opposed to output driven, I don't have an exact percentage, but it's pretty high. It's the teams that we work with who are successfully practicing discovery and calibrating their decisions with frequent observation or measurement of the degree to which that's driving customer behavior, because the company values that customer behavior occurring. right? If the leadership team doesn't value that customer behavior occurring, doesn't agree that that's the best way to know if our product teams are making more right decisions than wrong decisions, if they don't celebrate that learning, then the teams won't make their decisions that way. They won't prioritize that way because that's not what gets celebrated and rewarded and recognized within their company.
Yeah.
So if you have a well-defined product outcome and a leadership team that recognizes the value of outcome-driven product management, the success is very high.
Yeah, makes sense. Salva from YouTube.
Yeah.
So Salva asked, when you are in the first stage of your business, say a startup or evaluating an MVP, how do you apply this approach? Do I get it right? You'd set new outcome goal for every new hypothesis that is tested?
So here, this is a sort of a big question. So I'm going to try to answer it simply. So I do work with a lot of teams too. I call it working on sort of a 0 to 1 or a product team without a product yet. Maybe it's a product concept. Maybe they have a hypothesis around a target market to serve or the problems that exist within a target market and a reason why they believe they have a solution that's better than the alternatives being used by their target customers today. So like the first thing I'm checking for is, do you have a hypothesis of a target market, a value proposition, and clarity about why that's better than whichever substitutes alternatives? And then we're setting an outcome that enables us to easily measure or observe that that is resonating with target customers. And I have a little 45-second video that I've created to help teams with this. We're looking for behavioral signals. So it could be we can get our target, so the first goal might be we can get our target customers to show up for an interview to talk about why that's a problem for them and why they're dissatisfied with the alternatives. We can't get anybody to show up to have a conversation with us about it. Maybe, again, these are sort of assumption tests in the early stages. Maybe they don't, maybe that isn't the right target market or that isn't the right value proposition, right? And so we want to start by testing for variety. So these are hypotheses, that is correct, but we're looking again for these behavioral signals. Are they actively trying to solve, when they show up for the interview, are they actively trying to solve this problem or do they just like to talk about it and vent about it? So if they're actively seeking alternatives, or I cobbled together 3 things, or I spent money with this competitor, and I spent money with that competitor, right? We're seeing there's evidence in their behavior that this is a problem they're still trying to solve. So there's different behavioral signals that we can set, but that's typically why we'll set those outcomes as X out of Y. We're going to talk to, 5 people in this target market about our value proposition hypothesis for our for our new product idea, and we'll know our hypothesis is correct or our value proposition correct or our target market plus value proposition is correct if 4 out of 5 of them show up for the call and tell us that they're actively trying to solve the problem in some way that we defined. So that's how we can set product outcomes for early stage product teams. And again, usually with a short interval. Might be a week or a 2-week interval as opposed to a quarterly interval.
Yeah, that was very well answered. And Hope, if you want to share that video of yours, if that's recorded, that will be also very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Okay, there's another question from David on LinkedIn. He says, how can leaders help their teams to learn, especially if we feel we don't have enough data to have concrete product outcomes?
Yes. So again, this is why we use measure or observe, because for a lot of product, now this is classic, and especially in a mature company, a lot of product teams that have been working in output-oriented environments don't have products instrumented with product analytics to measure their customer behavior, right? They haven't needed to, because success was measured on just deliver the thing and deliver it to my PRD spec by X date. So why do we need product analytics? That's not our measure of success. So when teams are first moving from output oriented to outcome oriented, they don't have this like rich set of data that they can leverage to calibrate the degree to which that behavior is occurring based on the decisions of the product team. That's why observe might be a better way for the team to start. We're going to take, again, making up 5 target customers, and we're going to do a Zoom session with them. And we're going to say, tell me about the last time you did X. And we're going to see if they did it in our product. Right. So again, we're looking, and if 4 out of 5 of them did it, then great. We're going to consider that to be enough of a way for us to measure success. And over time, those product teams end up investing in product analytics instrumentation because they want to be able to measure this at scale, because they want to make sure they're actually driving the desired business impact that they seek. So that's what I would say if you're a leader with teams that don't have great product analytics. First of all, there's more product analytics out there, easier to integrate than ever before. So, but it's fair to say, like, actually, we don't know what we should measure and we don't want to instrument too soon. So start with those observations and then use that to drive what you want to measure more quantitatively.
Yeah, it's better to have product team focus on observing customers to generate outcomes. Okay. All right, so we have a few minutes left. I can take one more question. This is from Robert. Robert has asked this question on Zoom. How do you combine the idea of outcomes and OKRs? What is the best practice to leverage the benefit of combining both?
A great question. So a lot of teams use OKRs. A lot of companies use OKRs, right? OKRs are fantastic, but here's how I'd recommend them be used for product teams. So it's usually the outcome, the product outcome is the objective combined with a KR, which is the measure of success, the way we'll know if we're achieving that objective. So it's an OKR, not OKRs, okay? Because here's what I see teams doing when they feel like, well, I don't know, it's the objective, and then we have to have 3 key results. What they typically have are 3 key results. Maybe one is a traction metric, maybe one is a lagging business outcome measure, financial measure of success, and maybe one is a behavior in the product. And then they're like, I don't know which one to measure. And so again, this is why it's more helpful, more focusing for teams. It's not that they wouldn't want to keep track of some of those traction metrics. Did people log into our product? Did people get to this moment in the product? What percentage of people got to that moment in the product? Did they bounce? Did they drop off? Like, there might be a lot of metrics that you need to track. But in terms of having that one North Star measure of success, I'd recommend an O plus a KR, which you combine as your product outcome. And that KR should be a leading measure of customer behavior. That typically it occurs in your product as a product team, but not always. Sometimes it might happen as a result of people using your product.
Yeah, so it's always the OKR, not the OKRs.
Ours. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. All right, so this was the last question, and we are almost on time as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining. And thank you so much, Hope, for sharing your insights. For everyone on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, I thank you all again for your time. And if you have any questions, comments, just feel free to reach out to us through different channels. See you all next time. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.